The story starts right where Season 2 ended, with Gi-hun's rebellion crushed after a shocking betrayal by the front man. Here's a lightning-fast recap in case you missed the first 2 seasons. Gi-hun was the sole survivor of a twisted series of death games, designed to entertain a secret circle of rich elites known only as the VIPs. Determined to end it all, he re-entered the games to destroy them from the inside, but his plan just exploded in his face. Now, the front man has taken back full control, and the nightmare continues. Chaos, a defector, guard number 11, spares the life of player 246. A father who's competing for his terminally ill daughter. Shooting him in the side, she tells him to play dead as. They load him into a coffin, planning to set him free and get them both off the island. In the players' dorm, the guards set another coffin down in the center of the room, and the survivors are shocked to find an unconscious Gi-hun lying inside. He wakes up surrounded by his surviving teammates, and the guards announce that another 35 players were just eliminated, leaving only 60 still alive and a grand prize of 39.6 billion on the board. Now, it's time to decide if they'll continue to the next round. And as the voting begins, some of the no voters start to get intimidated, knowing that the yes have them all drastically outnumbered. When it's over, the yes end up winning by a landslide. And with all of the votes counted, it looks like the games are officially back on. Anyone who's still voting to stay in the game is a total, think about it this way, right? Down to only 60 players left from the original 456. But what's worse is that they only have 2 games left to go. Some of them are still holding out because they think that they can survive the next round. But the game is designed to have as few players in the final round as possible. And that's like betting your life on the worst odds of a coin flip. Now, with that being said, you'd think that that would be enough to make a few people change their minds. But the problem is some of the potential no voters are afraid to speak up because it puts a target on their back. More than half of them might actually want out, but they're just too scared to say it. If the guards here actually wanted the voting to be fair, then they would make it anonymous. But they set it up this way because they want to keep the games going. And the players who keep voting yes are too blinded by greed to realize that they're being manipulated for someone else's entertainment. Meanwhile, somewhere else in the compound, guard number 11, aka No-eul, follows a group of guards as they bring 246's body into a secret operating room. They've been harvesting organs from the players as a way to make some extra money on the side. But all of a sudden, No-eul grabs her MP5 and takes them all, leaving only the surgeon alive and ordering him to save her friend. Back in the dorms, Gi-hun here is still shell-shocked from the betrayal. But there's one other person who he blames for what happened. Player 388, who chickened out when he was supposed to be getting ammo during the battle. And now the only thing that Gi-hun can think about is revenge. The next morning, it's time for the 4th game to begin, and they're taken to a room with a giant gumball machine filled with red and blue balls at the center. Spinning the handle, they're sorted by what color ball they get onto either the red or blue team. And now it's time to find out what game they're going to play. Once everyone's been assigned to their teams, the guards announce that they'll be playing hide and seek. As always, there's a deadly twist. The blue team simply has to survive until the end of the round, but every player on the red team must find and kill someone from the blue team before their timer runs out. The blue players are all given keys that will open doors in the arena, including the exit, but the reds all have giant daggers, perfect for opening. Players are all preparing for the next round. Detective Juno has to pause his search while he looks for a new drone pilot. He's been searching for the island ever since he learned that his brother Inho was the frontman. But his partner, the former lone Sok Yusuk, calls to say that he's staying on dry land to follow up a lead, warning him not to trust Captain Park. Before the round starts, player 333 switches teams with his pregnant ex-girlfriend, player 222, taking her spot on the red team and promising to protect her after he's made his required kill. The blues are led into the arena first, finding themselves in a winding maze with 2 minutes to hide before the seekers join the game. Once the timer runs out, the killers from the red team are unleashed into the chamber, and Gi-hun sets out with only one thing on his mind: finding and killing player 388. Alright, this might be one of the most terrifying games yet, but I can tell you one thing. It looks like 388 is about to have a really bad time. Now, the setup for this was interesting because they were offered a chance to choose which side they wanted to be on. So the question is, which team was the best one to pick? While choosing the blue team is obviously the best from a moral perspective simply because you don't actually have to kill anyone to survive. Time is also on your side here because as long as you can run out the clock, you win by default. Now for the red team, you're starting the game with a serious advantage. But there's one big problem, because if you can't find someone to eliminate before the timer runs out, then you're done for no matter. With that being said, the red team seems safer, but only if you're actually ready to take out another player. Otherwise, you got to go blue team and rely on stealth strategy and the 5DS of dodgeball to get you by. Don't want to stay with the main crowd because they're going to draw too much attention. The old woman, player 149. Reaching a locked door, they realize that the keyholes are different shapes. But since they have a circle, square, and triangle, they've got all their bases covered. Working together, players 333 and 124 eventually corner this poor blue guy in one of the rooms. He puts up a good fight, but he's no match for the two of them at once, and they decide to eliminate him at the same time. They'll both get credit for half a kill each. Meanwhile, one of the reds catches up to the girls when Gi-hun trips on a flight of stairs. He offers to let player 120 live if she steps aside, and starts beating the absolute crap out of the dude with nothing but her bare hands. After defeating him, they've got a new weapon in case they need to defend themselves. But Gi-hun's ankle looks like it's fractured, making it that much harder for them to move around. After killing another contestant, players 333 and 124 are free to exit the game. But that's when Namu here makes a terrifying suggestion. The rules only said that they had to kill one person each, but they never said that they couldn't kill more. So they decide to keep working together to kill as many blues as they can find. The girls eventually take cover in one of the rooms, but that's when player 222's water breaks, meaning that she's about to give birth at any second. Somewhere else in the maze, player 44 happens to find an exit, but she'll need all 3 shapes to open the door, meaning that she'll have to go back into the maze to find the other 2 keys. It isn't long before she finds player 100 here playing dead, and he's got the keys that she needs to open the door. So she leads the way back to the exit, never suspecting that only one of them will be leaving this maze alive. Alright, this is not good. Player 222 here is about to give birth in the middle of a death game. And the worst part is that her ex-boyfriend totally set her up. Remember, she was originally put on the red team and she had no intentions of switching until he changed her mind. He tried to act like she wouldn't be able to eliminate someone. When it came down to it, after a painful delivery, player 222 finally gives birth to her baby girl. But that's when a player from the red team shows up looking for an easy kill. Refusing to let him reach the others, 120 pulls out her knife and drags the man into the hallway, fighting him off in a brutal battle to the death. Looking up, she realizes that she's found another exit, but she decides to go back for the others first. All of a sudden, player 333 runs up and stabs her in the back, and the others are horrified when they see what he's just done. But he leads player 124 away before he can find them. Back with the shaman, she's taken by surprise when player 100 betrays her at the last second, taking the key as he slams the door in her face. Turning around, she finds herself cornered by player 125 and starts shouting that the spirits will keep her safe. But that was her biggest mistake. At this point, he's so delusional that he starts seeing her as player 124. And as she tries to shove past him, He buries the knife deep into her stomach, eliminating the shaman here from the competition. As player 149 unlocks the exit, the woman's son happens to find them. He still needs a kill to survive the round, but she refuses to let him anywhere near player 222 and her baby. With only seconds left to go, he pushes past her and tries to attack, but the woman buries a dagger into his back, killing her own son to prevent him from hurting the others. As for Gi-hun, he finally corners player 388 and pummeling him into submission. He wraps his hands around his throat and chokes him to death. As he dies, the last thing the man says is that it was your fault. And Kun falls into a deep depression, knowing that he's right. After the game, the survivors are taken back to the dorms. And everyone's shocked when player 149 walks in holding the baby. With only 25 players remaining, the total prize is up to 43.1 billion. And now it's time to decide if they want keep going. As the votes come in, it looks like the O's are going to win again. And the old woman drops to her knees, begging them to stop the game for the safety of player 222 and her baby. But the other players refuse to listen. And when it's all over, the O's have completely demolished the X's 2-1. So, it looks like they'll be staying for another round. Alright. Just when it seemed like these players couldn't get any more ruthless, they just voted to keep an innocent mother and her newborn baby in the game. But once again, their greed is blinding them to just how bad of a decision this really was. Meanwhile, the defector No-eul disguises player 246 as one of the dead guards, sending him back with the others as she disappears into the vents. But the officer who runs the organ harvesting operation is starting to catch on. Annoyed, he orders his men to find guard number 11, but it looks like she's already found him. Holding him at gunpoint, she demands to be put on the perimeter duty along with guard number 16, threatening to blow his cover in front of the VIPs if he tries to stop them. The next morning, the players are all surprised when the guards walk in carrying another coffin. And that's when they realize that player 149 decided to leave the game early. It's heartbreaking, and the tiny amount of cash that drops into the piggy bank doesn't make it any better. That it's time to get ready for the next game. Back on dry land, Ashok manages to find Captain Park's apartment. And inside, he discovers pictures of the guy fishing with the recruiter from the games. After getting in a fight with a man's dog, he finds a bag full of cash and a pink guard uniform hidden under the doghouse. But his driver fell asleep while he was supposed to be keeping a lookout, and they both end up arrested before he can warn the others. For the next game, the VIPs are going to be watching in person. And the frontman opens up a curtain to reveal two giant dolls standing on either side of an enormous pit. Eagle Mask here is worried that player 222 won't stand a chance. But that's when Lion Mask has the most disturbing idea yet, suggesting that they allow the baby to join the game as well. The players arrive on a platform at one end of the arena, where they get their first look at the fifth game. The only way across is a narrow bridge with a gap in the middle. And there's nothing below them but a terrifying drop to certain death. To survive, they'll have to reach the other side before the timer runs out. And as the round begins, the dolls start swinging a giant rope. That will knock them off the bridge if they don't jump at just the right moment. After the last game, player 222 is so injured that she can barely walk. And Gi-hun offers to help the girl across. But that's when a guard steps forward, saying that the baby has to cross too. They're waiting for someone to go first. When Minu here reveals that he stole 124 special candy during the last round, tossing the necklace out to the center of the bridge. Desperate for his fix, the man starts making his way across. But when he gets there, he realizes that it's already empty, and the rope sweeps him off his feet, sending him plummeting all the way down to his death. Now, at the start of the match, the dolls sang a traditional Korean jump rope song known as Kaya. But Gi-hun here, he's going to have to do it all with a baby strapped to his chest, wrapping his jacket around his body like a sling. Gi-hun takes the woman's baby and steps to the front of the crowd. where he begins crossing the bridge a few steps at a time. When he gets to the gap, he has to wait for just the right moment to jump across. But he makes it. And after one final stretch to the finish line, the crowd goes wild as he finally makes it to safety. The woman is relieved to see that her baby made it, and Gi-hun promises to come back for her next. But now the other players are feeling confident enough to try. And reaching the other side, player 96 turns around and starts shoving players off, refusing to let anyone else get across. With player 96 blocking the exit, the other players end up trapped on the bridge, and the rope starts knocking them off one at a time. They're running out of time to get across. So, Gi-hun tells player 96 to get out of the way, threatening to push him over next if he won't step aside. He can't make it back for Junhee until everyone else is across the bridge, and she refuses to let her ex-boyfriend help after what he did to player 120. On the other side, 96 charges Gi-hun from behind, trying to knock him off the platform, fighting for his mothering life. Gi-hun reaches up and jams his thumb into the man's eye, judo throwing him onto the bridge, where the swinging ropes send him flying into the pit. Realizing that he can't help her, player 333 decides to go without his girlfriend, jumping right over another player as he makes his way across. Now Junhee is the only one left, but there's no possible way for Gi-hun to make it in time. And knowing that he'll risk his life to save her, she decides that there's only one option left, making him promise to take care of her baby. She steps off the platform and removes herself from the game, leaving Gi-hun completely shocked as the round finally ends. After the game, the VIPs are absolutely thrilled with how it turned out. But now they need to decide what to do about the baby. And the frontman suggests that they should let her take the mother's place in the next round. The guards announce that 16 more players were just eliminated. But that's when they learn that the baby is still in the game. Furious, a few of them immediately surround Gi-hun. But the guards say that they're no longer allowed to hurt each other outside of the games. Back on the outside, the detective Juno realizes that they're getting closer to the island, asking for the captain's advice. He crosses off an entire area of the map that he says would be a waste of time. Meanwhile, at the police station, Yusuk manages to get a hold of his phone, calling Juno and warning him that the captain is a spy. While he's distracted, Captain Park grabs an MP5 and starts taking out members of the crew before they even know what's happening. Hearing the gunfire, Juno quietly sneaks up from behind with a spear gun and blasts him straight in the chest. But before he can find out what the captain knows, the man dies from his injuries, refusing to give up any information about the island. That night, the remaining players are dressed in fancy tuxedos and served a delicious feast, with the guards even bringing in some warm milk for the baby. Now it's time for the final vote to begin. But as always, there is another twist. In the sixth game, they'll be allowed to choose which players get eliminated. And as long as they can pick the 3 players to sacrifice, the other 6 get to leave with all the prize money. Gi-hun is up first, and he obviously votes no. But the only other player who wants to stop is Minsu. And with the OS having the clear majority, it looks like they'll be moving on to the final game. Juno insists that he needs to keep looking for the island, and something tells him that he'll find it in the area that the captain crossed off. As for 11 and her friend, they make it to a boat and start speeding away from the island. But that's when the officer calls with some bad news. He figured out that she's sneaking a player out of the game, and revealing that he knows about the man's sick daughter. He's able to convince her to turn around. Before bed, the other players make a pact to eliminate Gi-hun, Minsu, and the baby, vowing to work together so that they can split the prize. But after everyone else is asleep, the frontman requests a special meeting with player 456, handing him a dagger. He tells Gi-hun to eliminate the other players in their sleep, before they can turn against him and the baby. Taking off his mask, he reveals his true identity as Player 1. But instead of taking his revenge, Gi-hun silently leaves the room, thinking carefully about what the man just said. Turns out that the frontman here was offered the same choice back when he was just a player in the games. But unlike him, Gi-hun still has enough humanity left to resist the urge. In the morning, the guards announce that it's time for the final game to begin, and Gi-hun immediately goes to make sure that the baby is still all right. Meanwhile, No-eul returns to the island and sneaks into the officer's apartment, demanding that he erase all records of player 246. As they reach the top floor, the officer jumps No-eul and starts battling her for control. But just when it looks like she's done for, she crawls to the elevator and grabs her gun, spinning around just in time to drop him with a spray of bullets. Back downstairs, the players arrive in the final chamber to find 3 massive shapes in the center of the arena, and the voice announces that they'll be playing Squid Game. The rules are simple. Push at least one player off the platform before the round ends. After the 3rd round, whoever's still left standing gets to split the prize money. But if they don't choose at least one player per round, then all of them will be eliminated. Pressing the button to start the timer, the others start going through a democratic process to decide who they should eliminate first. As if the answer wasn't obvious enough already. Sure enough, they decide that it's time for the baby to go. But Gi-hun refuses to give her up without a fight. Pointing this out to the others, player 333 warns them that he won't let go, and if they lose 2 players in one round, they'll have to pick someone from their group to die in the end. So instead they decide to pick an easier target. And that's when everyone turns around to look at Min-soo. With time running out, the group votes to kill player 125. But even that is not going to be so simple. The guy starts freaking out as they all get closer, and they realize that he could easily take someone down with him if they aren't careful. That's when player 333 gets an idea, and grabbing the long metal pole from the center of the platform, he charges towards Min-soo like a battering ram, and pushes him over the edge, eliminating him just before the end of the 1st round. Now, Min-soo going down first is actually pretty helpful, because it gets them through the 1st round. But Gi-hun and the baby are the next obvious targets, so he'll need to think quickly if they're going to make it out of this alive. With that being said, Gi-hun has a strong position to bargain from, because like player 353 pointed out, if they push him over while he still has the baby, they'll have to pick someone from their own group to eliminate during the final round. And this complicates their plans just enough to give him some leverage. Now he doesn't have much to offer, and there's no chance of him winning the fight 6-on-1. But what he can do is start turning the other players against each other. If I were Gi-hun, I'd point out that every single player who's still alive. A metal bridge extends between the platforms, as they all cross over to the triangle. This time, instead of pressing the button right away, player 333 says that they need to get the baby away from Gi-hun first. But just like before, he's still refusing to give her up. Frustrated, one of the guys is about to push them both off. But Gi-hun points out that they'll just turn on him next. And it's enough to start an argument between the other players. They're about to turn on each other, when player 333 comes up with another idea. And they all gather around for a big game of rock, paper, scissors. The loser has to negotiate with Gi-hun, while 333 stands by with the pole, and tying all of their jackets together like a rope. The others hold on. As the man slowly gets closer, he says that they want to draw lots. That way, even the baby has a fair chance of surviving. But Gi-hun still refuses to go for it, already sensing that they're planning a trap. Sure enough, the man lunges forward and grabs him by the waist. But Gi-hun takes out the dagger and cuts the rope, pushing the man up to the edge. Just as 333 runs forward with the pole, jumping out of the way as he tumbles over the side. Turning on the others, 333 announces that he's siding with Gi-hun now, finally revealing that he's the baby's father. Needing a new strategy, The others turn on one of their own and start beating him up, planning to injure him so badly that he can't fight back, and then throw him over the edge. Stepping in, Gi-hun tells the three of them to leave the man alone. But a huge fight breaks out when 203 lunges for the knife. In the end, they manage to defeat all of the players. But while they're distracted, player 39 decides that he's ready to quit, leaving only Gi-hun, Mungi, and the baby for the final round. The voice announces that it's time to move on to the circular platform. But while Gi-hun is busy looking after the baby, 333 grabs the pole and starts refusing to let him cross to the other side. Gi-hun only has 5 minutes to get across, so he decides to make him a deal, offering to let the man push him over the edge, so that he and the baby can both survive. But 333 absolutely refuses to trust him. Realizing that he's not getting anywhere, Gi-hun reluctantly puts the baby down and backs up to the other platform. But he's not about to give up just yet. At the last second, he grabs the knife out of player 203's chest and leaps across the gap, ready to fight 333 to the death, if that's what it's going to take to protect the child. Mungi lunges forward, knocking the knife out of Gi-hun's hand with the pole. But in the scuffle, he ends up getting to the baby first, leaving Gi-hun with no other choice but to surrender. Putting down his weapon, he backs away and starts rolling a jacket around his arm for protection, just as Mungi rushes at him with the knife. Fighting back, he grabs onto the man's arm and pulls them both over the edge, holding onto a piece of exposed metal, while Mungi dangles over the edge by the last threads of his jacket. Terrified, he watches as the fabric slowly begins to rip. But it's not enough to hold him, and finally he falls to his death, as Gi-hun pulls himself back onto the platform, only to realize that they never even started the round. It's just too bad Gi-hun didn't hit that button. Realizing what he has to do, Gi-hun steps forward and presses the button. Turning his back to the VIPs, he looks straight into the cameras and says that humans are not horses, and with that, he lets himself fall over the edge, ending the final game and saving the baby's life. Even the frontman is touched by how it all ended. And with the Coast Guard closing in on the island, he hits the big red self-destruct button, leaving them half an hour to get out of there before the entire place goes kaboom. It turns out that Juno rescued 246, just as he was about to get killed by the guards. And he's finally found his way into the base. He makes it to the VIP suite, just in time to see his long-lost brother, the frontman, taking the baby down from the platform. But there's nothing that he can do to reach him in time. 6 months later, 246 has gone back to work at the amusement park. And one day, No-eul secretly comes to check up on him, relieved to see that the man's daughter has made a full recovery. As she goes back to her car, she receives an unexpected call from a private investigator who's been searching for her long-lost daughter, and he says that he thinks they found the girl somewhere in China. Meanwhile, Juno finds baby 222, sleeping safely in his apartment, and next to her is a debit card with 45.6 billion won on the account. At the airport, No-eul receives another call from the investigator, wishing her luck as she boards a flight in search of her daughter. As for Yusuk, he decides to renovate the old pink motel, leaving his life of loan sharking behind for a more legitimate business. Somewhere in the suburbs of LA, the frontman arrives at the home of Gi-hun's estranged daughter, handing her a box of his only remaining possessions. Inside she finds his old jumpsuit, along with a debit card containing all of her father's winnings, and he leaves before she ever has a chance to ask who he was. As he's driving through the city, he hears an all-too-familiar slap from a nearby alley, and looks over to see a woman in a suit, playing slaptack with another potential recruit. That's the end of Season 3. But let's be honest, Squid Game never really ends. If a stranger in a suit ever asks you to play a game, just say, "No thanks." What a ride. This season was insane. Did we miss anything? Let us know in the comments. And hey, don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out our How to Beat playlist for more.